Welcome to Autism Tips and Tools, where we highlight the best practical guidance from previous episodes of Autism Knows No Borders. Whether you're a self-advocate, a family member, or a service provider, there's something here for you. I'm Rachel Harmon, a professional in the field of autism services, outreach, and advocacy. And the following clip is from my conversation with Tiffany Hammond, an autistic self-advocate, the mother of 2 boys on the spectrum, and the voice behind the blog Fidgets and Fries. As a Black and autistic woman, Tiffany aims to educate others about autism and intersectional advocacy. Her book, A Day with No Words, became a New York Times #1 bestseller. Here's Tiffany talking about the overlap between intersectionality and neurodiversity.
So intersectionality, it looks at our systems of privilege and oppression. So it's looking at not just all the ways that we are put at a disadvantage. It's also looking at the ways that we are privileged. It's looking at where power comes in and where power leaves. It's a power-based concept. What intersectionality will do is it will take a person or a community and it will look at where their power comes in and where their power depletes or where they have no power at all. And they are looking to find different ways that they can support that person or that community based on where their power fluctuates. Neurodiversity does similar, but in a kind of like a little bit of a different way. So what they are looking at is they're looking at how our brains operate and how it works within a society who mostly disables us because of how our minds work or because of how our bodies work. They're looking at also where we are strong at and where society would view us as weak at, and looking at all the ways that they can address those needs and help those with different minds live successfully in this world. And so when you have these two, intersectionality and neurodiversity, both looking at different power structures, different privileges, different oppressions, and you have these two incredibly, what I feel are powerful concepts or powerful things, and they're operating in different lanes. I was just like, what if we put them together?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there and I'm like, as a Black autistic woman, I'm disadvantaged in a lot of different ways. And intersectionality recognizes this. It shows where my power lies and it'll show me where it doesn't. What can be done to fix that? You're looking at a Black child who's autistic who will be diagnosed at a later age than a white child with autism. Excuse me, if they're diagnosed at all. But sometimes they're misdiagnosed. Sometimes they're not diagnosed at all. And sometimes they're given diagnoses of ODD.
Yeah.
Or just simply ADHD. If even that, a lot of times we don't even get one. Or they're diagnosed far later. So they're missing out on a lot of vital early intervention programs. They're missing out on a lot of services. Schools will suspend Black children at higher rates, expel them at higher rates. So then they're also missing out on services and supports there. So intersectionality will look at what is happening here and they'll attempt to address that. Neurodiversity also does a similar thing. They're looking at their minds. They're looking at how their minds operate. Why is it that this mind is treated so differently than every other one?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that can be done to address that? And so when looking at both of them and dissecting both of their parts, right? Because I like to take things apart.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at them both separately, and you're looking at these and you're just like, they're kind of wanting similar things. They're kind of wanting the same types of things. They're looking at the same types of stuff. right?
Mm-hmm.
So why not try to figure out how well they could intersect? And a lot of times people don't really look at intersectionality from a disabled perspective. See, a lot of times disabled people are left out of like a lot of conversations, majority of conversations, really. But then you have the neurodiversity movement, and they're not always looking at race. They're usually just looking at neurotype. They're usually just approaching the issue as a state of how our minds are operating. They're just usually approaching it from me just being autistic.
Mm-hmm.
So they're looking for solutions on how to help me as an autistic person. And then you typically neglect that I have these issues coming into me as being a Black person as well. So we need to introduce both, because a lot of times neurodiversity isn't intersectional that much, especially when it cross sections with race or gender or sexuality. It's a large focus on a neurotype, how our brains are, and how we are disadvantaged in a society that leverages normal brains, quote unquote. um,
Yeah, you're bringing up a lot of great points, and you're creating that space, like you're saying, through your blog.
yes,
You're inviting the different angles to shed some light on areas that maybe weren't.
that's what I am trying to do. I mean, even if you were to ask someone who's not in the disabled community at all, but they've heard of neurodiversity, and you're like, what do y'all guys think neurodiversity is? Most of the people that I've asked, they automatically assume it's an autistic movement.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even consider the other neurotypes out there.
Yeah.
And so it's looked at as a wholly, largely autistic thing. And they're missing all of the other neurodevelopmental diagnoses out there. You know, they're missing ADHD, they're missing dyslexia.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're missing those. They're missing those that have like autism and ADHD together,
Right.
or if they have another type of learning disability together. And so at first I was like, well, okay, well, they don't really know that much about the neurodiversity community because they're like outside of it. So maybe that's why they just assume it's an autism thing. But when you actually break it down and you're sitting there and you're looking at it, it does look largely autistic, right? It's like it that's what dominates this movement, you know? And it's like we aren't really looking at other diagnoses that make our minds different, that make our minds different from the general population. And that also, like, we're kind of intersectional in our neurotype as well. Listen, everything's not, you know, one kind of thing. So,
Yeah, and it's important to give everyone a voice and a place to stand.
yeah, that's what I think. And that's why I was thinking they can work together. As I was saying, I was like, intersectionality, or as it will look at me as a Black person and a woman, and it'll combine those two, and then it'll show a completely new experience that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's me being more than Black, it's me being more than a woman, it's me being put together. And what experience, that's a completely new experience that I have. So if we were to find a way to put intersectionality together with neurodiversity, combine those, that would create an entirely different framework that we can operate under. And maybe that will give us some better ways to address the issue of inclusion or diversity. What does that really mean?
Yeah. And like going back to your example about why Black autistic boys are less likely to get a diagnosis, and kind of examining why autism has a stigma in the Black community
Oh, man.
and looking at that. But it's these kinds of conversations that need to happen to bring more awareness and give families more information about what's out there and what they can be looking for when they start to see signs.
That's exactly right.
And then in that way, like training more professionals in the Black community so that they can help people who might not otherwise have access to services.
That's exactly right.
Thanks for tuning in to Autism Knows No Borders. Would you like to hear about how Tiffany overcame guilt after her first son's autism diagnosis and how she finally accepted her own autism? Follow the link in the show notes for the full conversation, and be sure to subscribe for more stories from people connected to autism, inspiring change and building community. Let's work together to transform how the world relates to autism. Thanks for listening. Take care.